Kia ora, Lara here, and I am putting together a layout based on this sketch, and I will link below the creator or a link to the creator of this sketch for day 10 of the best of Christy's Beautiful Life 30 days of sketches. So what I've done is I've gone ahead on the Cricut and I just sort of found one of the heart shapes. I think I just used the main one on the Cricut Design Space actually and centered it on a piece of white daisy cardstock. And now I'm just going through the Hope and Kindness paper collection by Close to My Heart, working out what sort of paper I wanted in the background, and I end up quite liking the stripe, so I'm actually going to trim it down to save some of the stripes for use later, and just pop that in behind that heart shape. So I've just trimmed it down so it should fit nicely in behind, and then I'm just going to, after I've decided what direction to keep the paper on, put some adhesive just around the outside edge there. So you can see that I've just done that, and on the back of it, making sure you put the adhesive on the paper that you want showing through. I have got, see, these nice stripes through here. So there's a really nice natural sort of patchwork quilt kind of look going on in here, and I decide that I want to add some stitching. So I've just sort of put a foam strip down there underneath, and I'm using a paper piercer just to poke some holes all the way through. I've gone ahead and done that off camera, and now I'm going to just thread through around the edge of this heart. So I'm using a light blue embroidery floss, and I'm just sort of tucking that in and around, and I'll do the rest so you don't have to watch me painfully stitch every little space. So the photos that I am scrapbooking in this layout are some photos I took of my husband eating meals at the Waipapa Hospital in Christchurch when he broke the top part of his femur off walking. He had this funny smile on his face every time these meals would arrive. He quite enjoyed someone else coming in and asking what food he wanted, having a little bit of a say in that in the mornings, and then these meals arriving on this dish and he could just eat them. There was no preparation involved. And the other beauty of these meals for him was that there was a dessert kind of thing with each meal, so lunch and dinner. It was normally a yogurt or a mousse or something like that, but it was still dessert with dinner, so he was quite happy with his hospital food. Hospital food often gets quite a bad rap, but in this instance it was obviously quite enjoyable. I was thankful there was a cafe in the hospital that we were staying in, so I was able to pop down and get bits and pieces to eat while I was there with him. For those who are not from New Zealand, which is probably most of you watching, kai is the Māori word or the word in te reo for food. New Zealand is has 3 recognised languages, so we have English, we have te reo, and we also have New Zealand Sign Language. So te reo is is the language of tangata whenua, the people of this place, before New Zealand was colonised. So and this is also recognised in Te Tiriti o Waitangi. Just a little bit of New Zealand histories here. And I mean, it has been coming. I remember learning a little bit of te reo in primary school, but it's very prominent now within New Zealand education and within our media and things that people use and recognise te reo as one of our main languages in New Zealand. So I took a Picture My Life card here, and I have actually trimmed around so that this banner swirling through the florals is separate from the actual card itself. Cutting up Picture My Life cards and using aspects of them is a way I love to add to the embellishment options within the Close to My Heart collections. So the sticker sheets that you can get with the papers and things, but I really like having a bit more to embellish stuff with, and so these Picture My Life cards give me that context or give me that ability. So I am sticking this down, and I'm going to have my journaling on there, the main parts of the story tied on to that. So I'm now going to use the liquid glass, and I'm going to stick down each of these wooden letters onto my layout here. So I should have done some of this off camera too. It's a little bit boring watching them all get stuck down, but these letters have been fabulous. I would like them to cost a little bit less because I just love that slightly raised look, but I love with the wood how you can keep it natural like this, or that you can ink it up, especially with the Distress Oxides. The colour seems to sit beautifully on them if you use them just to change that colour. You can also get them in white acrylic or black acrylic, but I just like the versatility and the natural tones of the wood. So I'm sort of having a look here at what other embellishment options I have, and I found these dots that were part of a previous collection, and I had one of the little eye bits missing, one of the dots from one of the eyes missing, so I've used some of these enamel dots here just to finish that off and to correct that. Otherwise there'd just be these little short sticks with no dot at the top. I'm having a look around at the pattern papers because I want a little bit more floral to tuck in around the photographs especially, and so I am going to do some fussy cutting. But before I get to that, I'm just backing each of these 3 photos that I end up going for. You'll notice at the start that I had sort of 5, but I slowly whittled that down to just 3 that are enough to tell that story, that they don't need, that I didn't need all of those photos in there. So I've sort of gone for a flat lay shot, a looking down shot on one of the meals, as well as my husband eating in bed, and also in the chair that was in his room. So just a few different context or screenshots. He's actually here listening as I do this voiceover, so I'm not sure if he's smiling. I can't actually see his facial reactions, but I normally sneak off and do my voiceovers so that I'm in a different space and can concentrate on it. So he probably feels a bit funny having me talking about him in these voiceovers. But anyway, so I found some more florals on the Picture My Life sort of sheets. So these aren't Picture My Life cards. There's a whole sheet, well, there's 2 sheets in this collection actually with these cards that are pattern paper on one side, or they are the sort of cards with words or text or titles or banners or florals or all sorts of things on the other side. So I've just roughly cut out the shapes, and then I'm going to go back in and fussy cut each of them so that they sit, they don't have the coloured backgrounds peeking out around the cards, and it's just those floral shapes. So I am using these microtip scissors here. These are brilliant for fussy cutting. I have loaned these to friends who have often then gone off and bought a pair of these scissors just because they cut so nicely as they go around the edges. As I'm just doing this voiceover, I am noticing my fingernails here in this the layout. A local lady, she actually lives about 3 houses away, has just sort of opened up a nail room, I guess you'd call it, in her home, and she's just doing local nails and things. I enjoyed getting a backfill and some gel nails put on, and I'm impressed with how long they lasted. When I put this layout together about 2 weeks ago, it was sort of freshly done, but they're still there, still going strong. So enjoying those different nails and how well lasting they are. So I'll be popping back to see her in another week or so. So this paper here has gorgeous florals on that sort of deep, I'm not quite sure it's a navy, maybe it's more of a royal blue. I think it's actually our harbour colour that we use, that we have with Close to My Heart. And I am going to cut out some of these florals just to add to those sort of florals tucked in and around the photographs. So you can just see I'm cutting some of them out and then putting them in different places. So I'm going to glue these down, get these stuck into the layout so that they're going to sit there. and some I'm going to poke on top a little bit rather than being completely underneath, so that the leaves and things sit over the top as well. So I'm just using the blue Tombow here because I'm just sticking paper to paper. And now just sort of deciding what else I need to add in here. And I decide that the layout actually needs a pattern paper border. So I should have trimmed this down first, thinking through this. So there was just a few wee things I had to work around, the likes of the wood shapes that are a little bit lifted, and if I'm trimming off an even amount with the trimmer around each side, I had to make sure that that wasn't going to get in the way. So I'm going to use this gorgeous sort of sage green background with some white florals on it, but I'm actually going to gut it, which means I'm cutting out a central part of it, because this is just going to sit behind the White Daisy cardstock, so there's no point in just sticking the White Daisy on a whole sheet of paper. I've got heaps there left over from the middle that I can use for other pages. So you can see how that just finishes off that edge there, just sort of tucks it out a little bit. So now that I've made a mess, I had to try and find that glue tape just to run down each edge so that it's going to stick nicely on that border that I've now cut out. And using my Versamat just helps me position it so I can make sure the top and bottoms are even where I'm placing all of the different White Daisy bits. You can see it's got an even border all the way around the edge there. So now I sort of look at it and I think, oh, there's another thing I should have done before I started. So I'm going to do a little bit of splattering using the acrylic gloss sprays, and I'm just sort of masking off the main parts of the page, so where I've stuck down the papers and the photos and things, just using this sort of scrap piece of White Daisy cardstock, which I will no doubt go back and use the other side of it for photo backing for something else later on. So that's just added a nice gold touch around the edges, just a little bit of interest rather than it being this super clean, stark sort of white background. So now I'm also going to add a few splatters using a shimmer brush. So just sort of choosing which ones and which colours are going to work here rather than being too dark. And then I decide they're all a bit dark, so I'm just going to use a flicking technique using some sage ink. So this is just a really subtle colour. It is one of the colours of these papers, but it just adds a nice gentle splatter. So to do this, I inked up the top of the ink case. I used my water brush and I inked up an acrylic block, and then I'm just flicking off the water from the corners of the acrylic block. Here's some close-ups of the layout that I've done based on this sketch. I'm going to link below a link to some Instagram pages. There's 4 other creators that are sort of featured today as part of this that Christy has done, which is a really nice touch to the best of 30 days of sketches. Hey, thanks heaps for watching.